William, listen carefully. I, Lydia, will never have children in this lifetime. Because no man is worth making me suffer through 10 months of pregnancy for him. At the company dinner party, Lydia said those words to me in front of everyone. Under the crowd's complicated gazes, I left quietly and went home. Only to receive a package the second I stepped through the door. Inside was Lydia's pregnancy examination report. She had already been pregnant for a month. But I had been away on a business trip 2 months ago and only came back yesterday. Faced with such a massive betrayal, I surprisingly didn't feel much heartbreak. Instead, I felt a strange sense of relief. I picked up my phone and called Lydia. After she picked up, I spoke in a completely calm tone. Find some time. Let's get divorced. William, what kind of drama are you pulling now? Just because I won't give you a child, you want a divorce? Lydia's voice was thick with undisguised disgust. Lydia, look at these tiny socks. Would they look cute on our baby? A sissy-sounding male voice rang out from the receiver. It was Gerald, Lydia's childhood friend. Right after that line, the call was hung up. Chapter 1. I glanced around the villa I had treated as home for the past 7 years and let out a long breath. I had bought this villa in full before marriage, but now I didn't even want it anymore. The whole house disgusted me. I planned to move out and sell the place afterward. Just as I was packing my things, the front door opened. Lydia walked in with Gerald clinging tightly to her arm. William, where are the slippers? Gerald gets cold easily. Go get him a pair of slippers. The way Lydia spoke to me had always been bossy and commanding. Gerald curled his lips into a smug smile and looked at me provocatively. Yet his tone remained soft and delicate the whole time. Liam, sorry to trouble you. I casually stuffed my design drafts into the suitcase without saying a word. I didn't even spare them another glance. Because the moment I looked at them, my body reacted violently. I almost threw up on the spot. That nauseating feeling was like being dead drunk and already wanting to vomit. Only to get trapped in a car rattling down a bumpy road surrounded by cloyingly sweet perfume. The disgust made cold sweat bead all across my forehead. Are you deaf? Seeing me ignore her, Lydia took off one of her high heels and hurled it straight at me. I dodged it effortlessly and merely gave her a cold glance, still unwilling to utter a single word. Only then did Lydia notice the packed suitcase beside me. Frowning sharply, she asked, "What's the meaning of this?" I already said it on the phone. Divorce. I answered lightly, without the slightest trace of emotion in my voice. Even though I had once loved her down to my bones. When disappointment piles up endlessly, love can vanish in an instant. Liam, are you upset because of me? But Liam, I already told you before, I'm not into women. Lydia and I are basically sisters. Gerald spoke in a syrupy, cloying voice. How about this, Liam, I'll apologize to you. Please don't be angry anymore. I'll try not to bother Lydia so much in the future. Gerald, what did you do wrong? William's just petty and jealous. This has nothing to do with you. And the only reason he's throwing a tantrum is because I don't want to have his child. Lydia looked at me with unmasked contempt in her eyes. William, if I had known you'd turn out like this, I would never have agreed to marry you in the first place. It's not too late to divorce now. I zipped up my suitcase, checked my drawing equipment one last time, then walked toward the front door. I'll put the villa up with an agent. You should move out as soon as possible. Chapter 2. You're selling our home? Lydia suddenly exploded shrilly and grabbed my arm tightly to hold me back. William, I just don't want to have your child. Is divorce really necessary? We agreed from the beginning that you wouldn't force me to have children. But at today's dinner, in front of so many people, you brought it up again. I only said a few words to embarrass you publicly, and now you want a divorce? Don't touch me. You're filthy. I roughly shook her hand off my arm. Filthy? William, are you insane? Lydia became even angrier after hearing that. She had always been overly proud, so naturally she couldn't stand my blatant disgust toward her. Am I wrong? I asked back before continuing my words. And besides, the one who brought up children today was Chairman Kim, not me. But even if it had been me, you should have at least left me some dignity in front of outsiders. Yet you didn't. So in your eyes, is William just some pathetic loser who doesn't even deserve basic respect? Everyone knows you're close with Chairman Kim. He was obviously speaking for you. And what dignity do you even have? I'm the company's chairwoman. You only have status because you're my husband. Once you divorce me, what will you even have left? Her entire face was filled with mocking disdain. I silently stared at her, finding it hard to believe she could actually say such heartless things. Seeing me remain quiet, Lydia thought she had me under control again. She pointed straight at me and snapped, "Now, apologize to Gerald immediately. Otherwise, I'll never forgive you again." Lydia, Liam loves you so much. It's normal for him to get jealous. There's no need for an apology. Gerald sounded considerate and understanding, but the way he looked at me was full of provocation and smug satisfaction. Hear that, William? Gerald is kind and generous, while you're always petty and narrow-minded. Lydia sneered coldly. If Gerald actually liked women, I might not even have chosen you in the first place. You disappoint me that much. Seeing that I still said nothing, Gerald put on an even more pitiful, wrong tone. Alright, Lydia, don't make things hard for Liam anymore. How about this? I'll apologize to him. And if he's still upset, I can even kneel and apologize. As he spoke, he actually dropped to his knees right in front of me. Liam, this is all my fault. Even though I don't like women, other people still see me as a man. I spend so much time with Lydia, and that really does make you lose face. I didn't think it through carefully enough. Liam, I sincerely apologize to you now, and I promise to cut ties with Lydia completely. As Gerald spoke, fake tears streamed down his face, and he even started kowtowing to me repeatedly. Just to steal another man's wife, this guy was really willing to go all out with his act. When Lydia saw this scene, her anger flared even more, and she raised her palm to slap toward me. I casually blocked her hand and looked at the two of them coldly. What a ridiculous joke. They cheated on me behind my back, and now they still wanted to hit me. You dare hit me? Lydia looked utterly disbelieving at my block. I glanced at her indifferently and said, Lydia, I was away on a business trip for 2 months, yet you've been pregnant for 1 month with someone else's child. I really want to know, where exactly do you get the confidence to keep barking at me like this? As I spoke, I casually slapped the pregnancy report hard against her face. Lydia's face instantly turned deathly pale, panic flooding every inch of her eyes. But after only a single second, her expression twisted into vicious rage again. William, I'm your wife, and you actually investigated me. Don't you have even the slightest trust in me? You're carrying another man's child, yet you can still say something like that. You really are an absolute top-tier menace. Chapter 3. I was so furious that I unexpectedly laughed out loud. And I never investigated you in the first place. This pregnancy report was just delivered by courier. Gerald cried out softly from the side, Lydia, maybe I accidentally filled in the wrong address. That's why Liam got upset. It's all my fault. It's not your fault. This isn't even a big deal. He shouldn't be angry over something like this. Lydia looked at me with icy cold eyes. William, your mind is filthy, so naturally everything you see looks dirty to you. She was literally pregnant with another man's child, yet somehow I was the filthy one in her logic. To be honest, when I first found out I'd been cheated on, anger did surge through me, sure, but I also felt a huge weight lift off my chest. Because I no longer loved her at all. So none of this hurt nearly as much as it should have. But Lydia's shameless, brazen attitude genuinely pissed me off to the core. Then tell me, exactly how am I filthy? I asked her seriously. Lydia replied without hesitation, the child in my belly is Gerald's, but we never did anything. It was artificial insemination. So? I nearly burst out laughing at her ridiculous excuse. So what? William, do you even have any compassion? Because of his orientation, Gerald's family has been putting enormous pressure on him. To comfort his parents, he wanted a child of his own. Gerald and I grew up together. It's my responsibility to help him with this. Or are you really heartless enough to just watch him suffer under all that pressure forever? Lydia spoke with righteous conviction, as though she had done some noble, selfless deed. I laughed again out of sheer disbelief at her twisted logic. As expected of a top-tier menace, her thought process was absurd beyond comprehension. Lydia, we've been married for years, yet you never agreed to have a child with me. And today, in front of everyone at the dinner, you declared that no man in this world was worth making you suffer through pregnancy for. But while saying that, you were already secretly carrying another man's child. Do you seriously have no shred of shame left in your body? I sneered at her. Lydia glared at me viciously. So this really is all because I refused to give you a child. You're so small-minded. I'm truly disappointed in you. All right, enough. I waved my hand dismissively. I seriously don't want to waste time arguing logic with someone mentally hopeless. I'll prepare the divorce agreement as soon as possible. Meanwhile, hurry up and move out of this house. After saying that, I turned around to leave. Suddenly, Gerald started crying loudly again. Lydia, if you two divorce, then our baby will be born into a single-parent family. What he was actually hoping for was obvious. He wanted Lydia to impulsively blurt out that she would marry him, solving the single-parent problem instantly. But instead, Lydia suddenly grabbed my arm tightly and looked at me with utter disgust. William, stop making a scene already. You heard him just now. If we divorce, this baby will grow up in a single-parent household. You can't be this cold-hearted. So what exactly are you saying? You don't want a divorce, and instead expect me to help you and Gerald raise your illegitimate child? I honestly wanted to crack open her skull just to check if her brain was filled with worthless garbage. Chapter 4. Gerald spoke up first to interject. Liam, actually, you don't need to worry about that. After the baby is born, I'll come over often to help take care of the child too. And then the four of us can live happily together as one big family. I laughed again out of sheer boiling anger. To my complete disbelief, Gerald actually nodded earnestly. Liam, wouldn't that be wonderful? Wonderful my ass. Lydia may have lost her mind, but do you think I've lost mine too? What normal man would tolerate his wife carrying another man's child under the same roof? I sneered, roughly shook Lydia's hand off my arm, and headed straight for the door. William, you're so uncivilized. How can you curse at people like that? Lydia rushed over and grabbed me again to stop me from leaving. I turned my head slightly and glanced at her, my voice colder than frozen ice. Lydia, we're all adults here. Have some dignity left and prepare the divorce papers as soon as possible. Then I walked back over to where Gerald stood. Staring at his pretentious, fake pitiful face, I threw a punch straight at him without holding back. In an instant, blood burst from Gerald's nose and mouth as he collapsed to the floor screaming in agony. That punch is your warning. If you keep pulling stunts like this, there'll be even harsher consequences waiting for you. If I were you, I'd just cling to Lydia like the worn-out cheater she is and stop coming around to disgust me. I turned and walked away without another glance. William, are you crazy? How can you hit someone? And who are you calling a worn-out cheater? I'm your wife. Lydia rushed over and grabbed at my clothes, refusing to let me leave the villa. I backhanded her across the face without the slightest hesitation. The sharp slap sent her crashing hard to the ground. Listen carefully, Lydia. When I loved you, there were many things I could tolerate without complaint. But I don't love you anymore. So you better take a good hard look at yourself and remember exactly how we got together in the first place. Lydia seemed unable to believe I had actually struck her. And from the panic flooding her eyes, it was obvious she had realized I was truly determined to end everything this time. After leaving the villa, I drove to the luxury apartment near the company. I had bought the place a while ago, though I rarely stayed there overnight. After tidying up briefly, I threw myself fully into work. The company had recently taken on a massive project, and the blueprints were already in their final revision stage. They had to be completed as quickly as possible. In the past, Lydia would have affected my emotions so badly that I couldn't focus on work at all. But now that all my feelings for her were gone, I only felt lighter and freer. I worked straight through until midnight before finally finishing the last touches of the design. After sleeping for only a few short hours, I immediately headed straight to the company. For a project this large, the final design proposal had to be formally presented before the board of directors. Inside the conference room, I was discussing project details with the board members when the double doors were suddenly shoved open violently. Lydia walked in with Gerald, followed by over a dozen uniformed security guards. Gerald had changed into a well-tailored suit, no longer putting on that weak sissy act. His face was filled with the smug arrogance of a petty man who had finally gotten his way. William, you're fired. Leave immediately. Gerald pointed at me sharply as though he were driving away a stray dog off the street. Chapter 5. Inside the conference room, everyone froze completely. They stared at Gerald in total, stunned disbelief. Back then, Gerald had only been a low-level employee in the company. He hadn't even been qualified to step foot inside this high-level conference room. And now he was audaciously trying to fire me. The sheer absurdity of his words stunned every single person present. Chairman Kim frowned deeply. Gerald, do you even know what you're saying? Chairman Kim, I'm the company's general manager now. I absolutely have the authority to fire a mere design director," Gerald declared arrogantly, chest puffed out with pride. All eyes immediately swiveled toward Lydia. Appointing a general manager without prior board approval was completely outrageous. After all, this wasn't some small amateur operation, nor was it a simple family-owned business. It was a formal corporation built on the joint interests of multiple independent shareholders. And the general manager was essentially one of the company's core key decision-makers, a critically important position. All official appointments were supposed to be handled through extremely strict, formal procedures. Lydia marched over and sat down in the head chair of the conference table, glaring at me furiously. "William, didn't you insist on divorcing me? Since that's the case, then you're no longer suitable to work at my company unless you give up the idea of divorce." Divorce. The expressions on every director's face immediately turned complicated and awkward. Everyone knew how obsessed I had once been with Lydia. Calling me a love-struck simp wouldn't even have been an exaggeration back then. So how could I possibly be the one actively asking for a divorce? The divorce is happening no matter what. I calmly set down my thermos cup, leaned back comfortably in my leather chair, and spoke clearly. "As for you, Lydia, I propose removing you from the position of chairwoman. Let's vote by show of hands." As I finished speaking, I raised my hand first. Chairman Kim froze briefly before immediately raising his hand as well. The other directors followed one after another without hesitation. Lydia was utterly stunned by the unanimous vote. Then she suddenly shouted shrilly, "I'm the chairwoman, I have veto power." Gerald nearly exploded on the spot too. "Are all of you insane? Instead of listening to the chairwoman, you're siding with William, this pathetic kept man?" The directors all looked at him as though he were a complete, brainless idiot. Gerald immediately roared at the security guards lined up by the door. "What are you standing around for? Throw William out right now." But the security guards didn't move an inch at all. In fact, they were also staring at him like he was a ridiculous fool. "Lydia, have you sat in that chair for so long that you actually started believing you fully deserved that position?" I asked calmly. Lydia was just about to explode in rage when she suddenly froze stiff. Because she had finally remembered something critical and important. Back in university, I had already started my own independent business. Chairman Kim had been my very first investor and longtime friend. After we made our first fortune together, we expanded the company rapidly year after year. Chairman Kim then introduced me to all the current board members. Because I had already proven my outstanding business abilities early on, the other directors were willing to invest and test the waters alongside me. As the business grew larger and larger, I became somewhat of a campus celebrity back then. And since I was already fairly handsome, there were plenty of girls lining up to pursue me. At the time, Lydia had been both my personal apprentice and one of my many admirers. Her beauty was breathtaking, and she was fiercely ambitious too. Being constantly around me for work, our relationship naturally developed into romance. I was the kind of person who, once fully committed to someone, devoted myself wholeheartedly without reservation. So I loved her deeply down to my very bones. After we got married, I even voluntarily let her take the chairwoman's position so she could look prestigious and respectable in front of her entire family. As for Gerald, he had actually always lingered around in our lives for years. But I had once personally witnessed Gerald passionately kissing another man at a party. So from the very beginning, I had never once suspected him of having ulterior motives toward Lydia. Only recently did I start hearing credible rumors that the scene I witnessed back then had actually been carefully staged by Gerald himself. He had never been gay at all, it was all an act. After hearing that truth, I demanded that Lydia keep her distance from him completely. But she refused to believe my words and even mocked me for being petty and overly jealous. Then, because I had to leave town for a long field investigation project, I stopped paying close attention to the matter. Who could have expected that by the time I returned home 2 months later, Lydia was already pregnant with Gerald's child? Even if it had been through artificial insemination, I still couldn't possibly accept such a betrayal. As for the company shares, I personally held 65% of all ownership. Lydia held absolutely 0 shares of her own. Not because I had been guarding against her from the start, but because every single director only fully trusted me to hold and control the core company shares. So even though I had always carried the nominal title of design director, in reality, I had always been the true person in power running this entire company. Chapter 6. William, you're just a mere design director. I seriously don't know what you're pretending to be. Gerald suddenly started shouting loudly again to regain control of the room. Then he turned sharply to Lydia. Lydia, why aren't you saying anything? Hurry and have security throw him out. I don't want to see him. Shut up! Lydia shouted sharply at him. Gerald froze completely in place, stunned by her outburst. Lydia, how could you yell at me? Lydia ignored him completely and instead looked straight at me with tears welling up in her eyes. William, I know I was wrong. Can we not divorce? Please, just give me one more chance. I shifted my gaze away from her tear-streaked face and looked toward the security guards by the door. Escort them out of the conference room. Starting from this moment, they are permanently banned from entering the company premises. After the chaotic farce was finally ended, we finished the rest of the board meeting as scheduled. But Chairman Kim and the other directors showed no intention of leaving the conference room. They had all been my close friends for many years, so naturally they cared deeply about my failing marriage. And since I was the true person holding all power at the company, my marital conflict would absolutely affect the overall business operations as well. I knew they were worried my divorce from Lydia might destabilize the company's development. Don't worry, everyone. This matter won't affect the company's normal operations at all. I smiled faintly to ease their worries. There are still plenty of important business connections we need to secure this month. Let's all get back to work. With my clear reassurance, the directors finally relaxed a little and dispersed to handle their own work. That evening, when I returned to the luxury apartment near the company, I had barely opened the front door before I spotted a group of unfamiliar people inside my living room. Lydia, Gerald, and a middle-aged married couple. The couple were Lydia's biological parents. Only then did I remember that the password to this apartment had always been set to Lydia's birthday. And I had completely forgotten to change it after the fight at the villa. So you still know how to come home? Lydia's father questioned me sternly the second he saw me walk in. I casually tossed my tailored suit jacket to my waiting assistant, walked straight over to the liquor cabinet, picked out a bottle of aged wine, and poured myself a glass before replying calmly. What? Your daughter got pregnant with another man's child, and now you're the ones coming here to interrogate me? The moment those words left my mouth, Lydia's parents' expressions instantly darkened with anger. Lydia herself turned deathly pale, her eyes full of desperate pleading as she stared at me. Meanwhile, Gerald looked absolutely furious and had completely dropped his weak, soft-spoken fake act. Lydia's father slammed his palm hard against the coffee table angrily. I'm sure Lydia already explained everything to you. Gerald was under too much family pressure, which is why he came up with this solution. Lydia is such a kind, soft-hearted person, how could she possibly refuse to help him out? I looked directly at Lydia's mother. Then why don't you go carry another man's child, and ask your husband whether he'd be happy about it? Lydia's mother, who had been about to lash out at me, instantly turned green with suppressed rage. Lydia's father roared loudly, "What kind of nonsense are you talking about? My wife would never carry another man's child." The moment the words left his mouth, he realized he had accidentally exposed his own hypocrisy. So you're hypocrites too? My wife carrying another man's child is somehow acceptable to you, but your wife doing the exact same thing isn't? I shook my head with a cold laugh and pointed firmly toward the front door. Enough of this pointless bickering. You people clearly came here solely to make trouble, and I can't be bothered arguing logic with you anymore. Before I lose my temper completely, get out of my apartment right now. William, how can you speak to your elders like that? No matter what, they're still your parents-in-law. How can you treat them this way? Gerald shouted at me aggressively. I sneered coldly at his fake righteous tone. Fine. Let me explain this one last time using basic common logic. Lydia is carrying your child. Even if it was done via artificial insemination, no normal, decent man would ever accept that. Anyone with basic morals and common sense would instantly know she's fully in the wrong here. So if these two elders had come here today solely to apologize for their daughter's mistakes, I would still respectfully call them uncle and auntie. But the ridiculous part is that they actually came here to question and blame me instead. And honestly, I'd like to ask you something too. Have I spoiled you for so many years that you now think William is someone anyone can push around without consequences? I bought you luxury villas. I bought you high-end cars. I loaded tens of thousands into spa membership cards for you without blinking an eye. Even the money Lydia's father spent fooling around at clubs all came straight out of my pocket. If I throw a chicken drumstick to a stray dog on the roadside, At least it remembers to wag its tail the next time it sees me. But after everything I've done for your entire family, you people ended up treating me like a worthless stray dog instead. Hashtag Chapter 7. I pointed toward the door once again, voice sharp and unyielding. There are 8 professional bodyguards waiting outside the building lobby. So before I call them in to forcibly throw all of you out, get lost immediately. William, after everything we've been through together, can't you forgive me just this once? Lydia rushed over quickly, dropped to her knees right in front of me, and clung tightly to my pant leg to hold me back. Lydia, forgive you for what exactly? Forgive you for growing arrogant and entitled because I spoiled you endlessly? For treating me like I wasn't even a human being worthy of respect? Back then, you were the one who chased me first. And the night we slept together for the first time, you deliberately got me drunk, otherwise I wouldn't have agreed to it so easily. Fine. Since I chose you back then, I treated you wholeheartedly for 7 years. I even handed you the chairwoman position in my company just so you could save face in front of your judgmental relatives. But have you sat in that high position for so long that you genuinely started believing you fully deserved every single luxury and privilege? That you could stop treating me like a human being altogether? I forcefully pulled my leg free and roughly shoved Lydia aside onto the floor. She collapsed onto the floor crying hysterically, her body shaking non-stop. William, I really know I was wrong. These past years, I got completely carried away by vanity. I shouldn't have treated you that way, and I shouldn't have let Gerald manipulate me into agreeing to carry his child. Enough. Get out. I looked down at her with icy cold eyes. Everything you've had all these years came solely from my love for you. Now that love is gone, it means you'll lose every single bit of it too. William, I truly know I was wrong. Please forgive me just once. Lydia sobbed desperately, clinging to my ankle again. I sneered with unmasked disdain. You don't regret what you did. You're just terrified of losing all the wealth and status you've grown used to. All right, divorce is possible then. Lydia's father suddenly spoke up from the side. But you must give Lydia company shares as compensation. Lydia's mother quickly added her demand. And I really like this apartment too. You have to sign it over to us, otherwise don't even think about getting divorced. Dumbass. Do you people seriously not understand the basic legal situation we're in? During our marriage, Lydia voluntarily got pregnant with another man's child. If I formally file for divorce in court, what exactly do you think the judge is going to rule? And besides, Gerald has been making massive illegal kickback profits through Lydia at the company all these years. I've already submitted all the evidence to the police department. Lydia not only cheated during the marriage, but also intentionally damaged huge company interests for Gerald's benefit. Even if I wanted to voluntarily give her company shares, the board of directors would never approve such a loss-making settlement. Your whole family is mentally hopeless. You don't even understand basic common sense, yet you still want to scam massive compensation money out of me? I had completely run out of patience with their absurd demands. Turning to my assistant, I gave a clear order. Call the bodyguards in and throw them all out of the apartment. William, aren't you afraid I'll go public with this and crash your company's stock price? Gerald shouted angrily to threaten me. Lydia's father hurriedly chimed in too to back him up. That's right. We'll go protest downstairs at your company with big banners saying you abandoned your wife after using her for status. We'll expose your private drama all over the internet too. Netizens nowadays are brainless idiots, they'll blindly sympathize with women and cyberbully you to ruin. Lydia's mother nodded repeatedly in agreement. Exactly. I heard corporate reputation is extremely important for stock prices. I stared at them in complete disbelief, so speechless that I couldn't even find words to respond to their ridiculous threats. Then, even my professional assistant burst out laughing uncontrollably. We're professionally trained assistants. Normally, no matter how funny something is, we can hold it in, unless we really can't. Hashtag Chapter 8. My assistant was practically laughing to tears at their empty threats. Have you people been watching too many brainless soap operas? Do you really think some trivial relationship drama can seriously impact a large enterprise like ours that much? And even if it theoretically could, it would first have to be a publicly traded company. Our company isn't even listed on the stock market. What stock prices are you even talking about? Lydia's father froze stiff, utterly confused. That's impossible. If there are company shares, then how can there not be stocks? I glanced at Lydia with undisguised contempt in my eyes. Looking at your brainless parents, I suddenly fully understand why you turned out this mindless, selfish mess too.
William, I truly know I was wrong.
Lydia seemed completely broken at this point, repeating only that single sentence over and over without pause. She slowly climbed to her feet, tears streaming nonstop down her cheeks as she spoke.
I'll go terminate the baby right now, and then I'll have your child instead, okay? Lydia, remember that Patek Philippe watch I used to own?
The luxury timepiece your father is wearing right now. It was worth over $2 million.
After he wore it once to a banquet, I simply gave it to him as a gift. Do you know why I was willing to give away such an expensive watch without hesitation? Because once something has been used by someone else, I find it filthy and don't want to keep it around anymore. You're filthy now too, Lydia.
I took another slow sip of wine and walked toward the staircase to head upstairs. Oh, and one more thing before you leave. That Gerald guy carefully schemed his way into your life step by step. He even staged that whole fake gay act just to trick me into lowering my guard. Do you really think all of this was because he genuinely loved you? If I'm guessing right, his entire plan was to trick you into getting pregnant so I'd definitely divorce you. He assumed you'd definitely get a large amount of company shares as divorce compensation afterward. And then he could swallow up your entire family's assets for himself without lifting a finger.
Lydia turned to look at Gerald in total, shocked disbelief.
Meanwhile, Gerald lowered his head completely and said nothing to refute my words. Because that had been his original plan all along. By then, the 8 bodyguards I'd called had already entered the apartment and started dragging every single one of them toward the front door. But suddenly, Lydia broke free and sprinted straight into the kitchen. When she came back out a moment later, she was tightly gripping a sharp kitchen knife. She pressed the cold blade hard against her own neck and stared at me with wild, desperate eyes. William, if you insist on divorcing me, then I'll die right here in front of you.
Then go die somewhere else.
I replied without a single trace of softness. If you die in my house, I'll still need to put this apartment up for sale afterward. A property where someone committed suicide automatically loses most of its market value. I sounded completely heartless to her ears.
And honestly, it wasn't an act at all.
When I loved her and when she deserved that wholehearted love, I would have treated her like my entire world. But once she no longer deserved my affection, especially after doing something as unforgivable as this betrayal, she became completely worthless in my eyes. Lydia cried hysterically, her voice cracking from despair.
You're too cruel. Can you use your brain for once?
You're a married woman carrying another man's illegitimate child.
Do you seriously think that's something forgivable? Have you spent so much time online reading nonsensical posts from lunatics that you genuinely believe this world has no basic logic or morality left at all?
I gave up on going upstairs for the time being and instead headed straight for the exit door.
Forget it.
I'm putting this entire apartment up for sale too.
Bad luck sticks to every corner of it now.
As for whether Lydia truly intended to kill herself with that knife, I couldn't care less at that moment. Suddenly, Lydia screamed loudly from behind my retreating back.
Even if all that's true, does that mean you did nothing wrong at all? Wrong my ass. Are you actually brain dead?
I couldn't stop myself from cursing out of sheer exasperation. Then, without even bothering to glance back, I stepped out of the apartment and closed the door behind me. As I walked down the corridor, I vaguely heard Lydia's mother speaking loudly inside the apartment.
Lydia, cut your wrists.
Then he'll definitely feel sorry for you and soften his heart.
What the hell? Was this entire family mentally insane beyond repair? What kind of hopeless simp would still pity her after all the shameless things they'd done? Because it definitely wasn't going to be me. Chapter 9. The next day. When I arrived at the company entrance, I saw hundreds of people gathered outside the office building.
Most of them were office workers from the surrounding nearby companies, all blocked from entering the building now. Because Lydia's parents had hired a crowd of people to stage a sit-in protest right at the main entrance. Behind the crowd hung a massive fabric banner with bold black text, "William of Sincere Realty abandoned Lydia after getting her pregnant, nearly causing 2 deaths. A huge number of people in the crowd were holding up their phones to film the scene. Some were even live streaming nonstop, probably online influencers and streamers chasing hot drama for views. The building's security guards, along with police officers who had already arrived on site, didn't even dare step close to the protest crowd. Because surrounding the outermost edge of the protest were trembling elderly people hired by Lydia's family. They immediately started wailing and throwing dramatic fits the second anyone got close, screaming false claims like, "The police are beating innocent people." Gerald held a handheld microphone while Lydia lay beside him on a stretcher, pretending to be unconscious and weak from suicide attempts.
Everyone, we never wanted to disturb anybody's daily work. But William is simply too cruel. Lydia is carrying his child, yet he still stubbornly wants a divorce. Now Lydia became suicidal and almost lost both her own life and the baby's life as well. We had nowhere legitimate left to seek justice, which is why we had to resort to doing this publicly. After all, William is too powerful for ordinary people like us to offend easily. And the
other woman he cheated with is a female CEO from a major corporation. We can't afford to offend her either. Please, everyone, help us seek fair justice for this poor mother and unborn child. As Gerald spoke, he even started crying dramatically for the live stream cameras.
At that moment, I was standing hidden quietly among the crowd of onlookers, watching the whole ridiculous show.
I thought these idiots really had the guts to take their petty revenge scheme this far.
And honestly, today's chaotic internet environment was exactly why shameless people like this could stir up endless pointless drama online.
Still, I did have a slight headache over one particular messy detail.
Because this so-called female CEO they were falsely dragging into the scandal actually did have a tiny bit of one-sided history with me.
Well, history was probably too strong a word to use. It was entirely one-sided infatuation on Freya's part, nothing more. At a business banquet half a year ago, Freya got drunk, and someone casually asked why she still wasn't married. She openly admitted she already had someone she secretly liked. But when people pushed her to reveal who the man was, she refused to say his name. In the end, she drunkenly revealed only one small clue: the man she liked had once been her senior in university, a legendary campus figure back then. Naturally, people at the banquet immediately started investigating the identity of this mystery man. And among all possible candidates from that university year group, I was the only one matching the description. The gossip story ended up trending online for several days back then. Back then, Lydia even fought with me for hours over that meaningless rumor out of jealousy. But the honest truth was, Freya and I had never met privately alone even once. Even in public formal settings, we barely exchanged more than basic polite greetings. I never expected this old, forgotten gossip from half a year ago would eventually be weaponized against me by Lydia and Gerald.
My assistant walked over and handed me a smartphone showing the ongoing livestream.
Netizens in the comments section were already wildly exposing me, claiming Freya and I had secretly been having an affair for years behind Lydia's back. I couldn't help laughing bitterly at their blind, unsubstantiated accusations. Honestly, I didn't care much about random online rumors. Unverified gossip spreads online every single day. Once people got bored gossiping about this drama, they would quickly move on to the next trending topic. But then, a stunning silver McLaren sports car suddenly pulled into the open plaza directly in front of the office building entrance. As the polished car door swung open, the first thing every spectator saw was a pair of impossibly long, slender legs.
Tall, elegant,
cold and breathtakingly beautiful beyond words.
Freya stepped out gracefully into everyone's full line of sight.
Her name suited her perfectly. Beautiful, noble, commanding, she radiated the natural aura of a powerful top-tier businesswoman effortlessly. And the moment she stepped out of the car, she immediately spotted me hidden in the crowd and walked straight over toward my position without hesitation. Naturally, every single spectator's attention instantly followed her movements too. Faced with countless livestream cameras shoved directly toward her face, Freya remained perfectly calm and composed without a hint of awkwardness. She nodded politely to the surrounding crowd and said openly for all cameras to capture, "I'm the Freya that sissy over there was talking about in his speech. Honestly, I'd absolutely love to become William's affair partner. Unfortunately, I never had the courage to confess my feelings to him all these years. But I heard he's getting divorced now, so I'm hoping to slide right into the vacant spot seamlessly."
Excuse me, big sis, are you trying to ruin my reputation right here in front of hundreds of cameras?
I was completely speechless at her bold public confession. Freya merely winked playfully at me before speaking again to the crowd.
At the very least, I'm far more worthy of you than that brain-dead ex-wife of yours, right?
At that moment, Gerald rushed over aggressively and pointed at us furiously. "You shameless adulterers! You've ruined this poor woman's life."
You what? Freya cut him off coldly before he could finish his dramatic rant.
"Gerald, while Lydia was still legally married to William, you and Lydia underwent artificial insemination together, resulting in her current pregnancy.
I already have all the complete evidence. Which hospital you visited?
The exact date you went, and which attending doctor handled the entire procedure.
I've seen plenty of people try to twist the truth for sympathy before. But I've never seen idiots as hopelessly brazen as you two. You didn't even think to properly destroy the hospital records as evidence beforehand. Chapter 10. I was mentally exhausted from this whole messy scandal. I cared deeply about my professional reputation in the industry too, and I definitely didn't want this ridiculous marital drama spreading everywhere to damage my brand. But now, for quite a long while afterward, I was probably going to become the main gossip material among every business peer in our industry. Seeing my helpless, worn expression, Freya smiled softly at me.
Don't worry. I don't mind all this online gossip drama. I mind. I rubbed my forehead helplessly from the constant headache. Then, I turned toward all the livestream operators filming the scene and spoke clearly for everyone to hear. Since these people are shameless enough to expose their own ugly schemes to the public, I might as well release all my stored evidence too. Right after that sentence, I instructed my assistant to play the surveillance footage recorded inside the luxury apartment on the giant outdoor LED screen outside the building. Included in the footage was Lydia's father ranting loudly about how netizens are brainless idiots easy to manipulate and other similar malicious nonsense they'd spoken in private. The bullet comments scrolling rapidly in every livestream instantly exploded with new messages. At first, every online viewer had been calling me a cheating scumbag without a second thought. Now the entire internet public had completely turned against Lydia, Gerald, and her parents instead. Because too many people had gathered outside the building blocking normal business entry. The chaotic scene had already become a serious public safety hazard. The police department immediately sent additional patrol officers and took every hired protester away from the scene for questioning. As for Lydia, she remained lying motionless on the stretcher from beginning to end and was eventually carried away by ambulance too. Later that same day, Freya and I held a separate fully live-streamed press conference to clarify the entire truth of the marital conflict. And during the conference, Freya shamelessly took the opportunity to confess her long-hidden feelings to me again on live camera, leaving me both amused and speechless. For quite a long time afterward, Lydia, Gerald, and her parents disappeared completely from my daily life. She also stubbornly refused to sign the official divorce papers, so I eventually filed for formal divorce litigation through the local district court. Meanwhile, my large company project was nearing full completion. But there were still several difficult high-level business connections left unresolved to secure. Freya ended up using her elite upper-class social circle and extensive personal connections to arrange several private high-end business dinners for me. Thanks to her smooth coordination, all the tricky business relationships were finally fully smoothed out without any further obstacles. That night after finishing the last dinner meeting, Freya got drunk again. And in the private hotel room, only the two of us remained alone together. She leaned against my shoulder stubbornly without moving an inch, mumbled softly in a drowsy, tipsy tone. "William, I've liked you for many years now, ever since we were in university. What exactly do you like about me?" I was genuinely curious about her long-standing crush. Truthfully, I had always remembered her clearly too. After all, she had been one of the few truly untouchable ice queen goddesses back during our school years. "You just naturally caught my eye from the very first moment I saw you. And you're incredibly amazing too. Starting completely from nothing and building a huge enterprise this massive all by yourself," Freya murmured sleepily against my shoulder. "But honestly, the biggest reason I fell for you is your face. When I used to read romance novels, I always loved those male lead characters wearing crisp white shirts under bright sunlight. You have exactly the kind of perfect face I imagined for an ideal male lead, good-looking and wildly capable in business. If I'm not going to fall for someone like you, should I go chase some useless rich heir from a meaningless arranged marriage instead?" Fair enough, that reasoning made sense. I had honestly expected some cliché dramatic backstory explanation. Like how I had accidentally helped her out of a difficult crisis years ago or something similar. Once the entire large project was fully officially launched, I finally wasn't nearly as swamped with work anymore. As for my divorce litigation case with Lydia, because she failed to appear in court during the first hearing, and because first trials in divorce cases rarely approve immediate separation, we still weren't officially divorced yet. But my personal lawyer assured me the second court hearing would absolutely grant the formal divorce ruling without delay. Meanwhile, Freya had already shamelessly moved into my private house with countless suitcases full of her personal luggage. And on her very first night staying there, she pounced on me immediately after we talked, though she ended up crying from the pain the entire time afterward. 3 months later, Lydia and I officially completed all divorce procedures.
Lydia's father and mother were arrested by the police for spreading false rumors and disrupting public safety order at the company protest. Gerald ended up in prison too, and for an even longer sentence. After all, he had accepted illegal kickbacks worth tens of millions of yuan from my company over the years through Lydia's position as chairwoman. Once the divorce was fully finalized, Freya completely stopped holding back her long-hidden affection for me. Especially because her parents had been desperately waiting for her to settle down, get married, and have children for years. So we immediately began all preparations for our wedding ceremony. And in the end, we held a magnificent, extravagant wedding grand enough to be widely called the wedding of the century within our industry. On the actual wedding day, everything had originally gone perfectly smooth and flawless. But after Freya and I returned home to our new mansion that night, we received an anonymous package delivered to the front door. Inside the package was a single unlocked cell phone. There was no lock screen password set at all. The moment I tapped the screen to open it, a pre-recorded video started playing automatically. Lydia appeared clearly in the video frame. Her face was deathly pale, and her expression looked completely unhinged and mentally broken. "William, congratulations on your wedding. And I prepared a unique wedding gift specially for you two too. This gift will stay with you for the rest of your life, no matter what happens." Then she let out a disturbingly twisted, deranged smile and slowly pulled a sharp knife out from beside her, pressing the cold blade hard against her own throat. I immediately covered Freya's eyes tightly, stopping her from seeing the bloody, horrific scene that followed in the video. As for me, aside from the momentary visual shock of the gruesome image itself, my heart remained completely unmoved and cold. When you no longer hold any love for someone, whether they live or die has absolutely nothing to do with you anymore.